A taxi driver in Manila once refused my money and told me something that would haunt every future trip I'd ever take. His words weren't profound philosophy or ancient wisdom, just a simple statement that revealed why I'd been traveling all wrong for months across Asia. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before that life-altering conversation, I was just another backpacker chasing Instagram moments and collecting countries like trophies, completely oblivious to the treasure hunt I was actually on. Before we continue, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. With that said, let's get back to the video. Tokyo's neon maze had dazzled me into thinking I understood urban energy, while Bangkok's street food chaos convinced me I'd mastered sensory overload. Vietnam's gentle rivers whispered ancient secrets as they carried me through emerald landscapes, and South Korea's gleaming towers declared humanity's technological triumph over nature. Each destination had deposited its gift into my travel vault, traditions carved from centuries of wisdom, landscapes that challenged the limits of natural beauty, innovations that redefined possibility itself. Yet standing in Manila's airport that first evening, I had no idea I was about to encounter something that would make all those experiences feel like mere appetizers to the main course. My flight to Manila carried the weight of routine expectation. Another overcrowded Southeast Asian capital awaited, where traffic crawls through arteries of concrete, where noise becomes a living entity, and where every conversation would likely culminate in someone selling me something questionable. The urban symphony played exactly as predicted when I landed. Motorcycles threading impossible spaces between buses, vendors weaving melodies from multiple languages, the relentless heartbeat of a metropolis that never rests. Yet beneath this familiar surface, an invisible current pulsed through the air, something indefinable but unmistakably different. Enter that first night and the encounter that rewrote my travel handbook entirely. Flagging down a taxi outside my hotel, I braced for the standard negotiation dance, the careful balance between fare payment and tourist trap avoidance. Instead, what unfolded next demolished every cynical expectation I'd built from months of transactional travel encounters. The driver, weathered hands gripping the wheel and eyes that sparkled with genuine warmth, didn't mention tours, didn't suggest overpriced restaurants, didn't even hint at the usual upselling routine. As we navigated through Manila's evening traffic, this remarkable man shared stories of his family, his dreams for his children's education, and his observations about life with a wisdom that only comes from genuine experience. He laughed with such infectious joy that I found myself grinning like a fool in the back seat. When we reached my destination, he refused my tip, saying that good conversation was enough payment, and then offered advice about places to visit as though he had a personal stake in making sure I fell in love with his country. I stood on that sidewalk long after his taillights disappeared, wondering what kind of place I had stumbled into where strangers treated you like family without any ulterior motive. But that was only the beginning of a revelation that would unfold over the following weeks like the most beautiful story I'd ever heard before. The next day, following a recommendation from my taxi driver friend, I ventured beyond Manila's urban core to a small fishing village whose name I still struggle to pronounce correctly. The journey took me through landscapes that shifted from concrete jungle to rural paradise, where rice terraces carved into mountainsides created natural amphitheaters of green that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. When I arrived at the village, tired and probably looking like the confused tourist I was, something extraordinary happened that still gives me goosebumps when I remember it. A family whose modest home sat near the water's edge noticed me wandering around with my camera and backpack, clearly out of my element. Without hesitation, without even knowing my name, they invited me in. Their house was simple, constructed from materials that spoke of necessity rather than choice, but the warmth that radiated from within those walls was richer than any luxury hotel I'd ever experienced. The mother, a woman whose hands bore the evidence of years spent working to provide for her loved ones, immediately set about preparing food for me. Not leftovers or scraps, but a proper meal that I later realized represented a significant portion of their daily resources. What struck me wasn't just their generosity, though that was overwhelming enough. It was the complete absence of any expectation in return. They didn't want money, didn't ask for photos, didn't even seem to want my gratitude beyond accepting it graciously. They treated my presence as a gift to them, as though I had somehow honored their home by simply being there. We communicated through a beautiful mixture of broken English, enthusiastic gestures, and laughter that transcended any language barrier. The father showed me his fishing nets with the pride of an artist displaying his masterpiece, while their children shyly shared their toys and drawings, treating me like the uncle they'd been expecting all along. As evening approached and I prepared to leave, the mother pressed a small wrapped package into my hands. Inside, I discovered homemade cookies and a note written in careful English that said, "For your journey, from your Filipino family." That night, back in my hotel room, I sat staring at that note and feeling something shift fundamentally in my understanding of what it means to be wealthy. The next phase of my Philippine adventure took me to places where this lesson would be tested in ways I never anticipated. Following local recommendations, I found myself in Tanda, one of Manila's most densely populated areas where poverty isn't hidden behind closed doors but lives openly in the streets. I'll be honest, I approached this experience with the heavy heart of someone expecting to witness suffering. Instead, what I discovered challenged every assumption I'd ever made about the relationship between material circumstances and human happiness. Walking through streets where families live in conditions that would be considered unacceptable in many parts of the world, I heard something that stopped me in my tracks: laughter. Not the bitter laugh of irony or the hollow sound of resignation, but genuine, joyful laughter echoing from every corner. Children who owned nothing more than the clothes on their backs played games with an enthusiasm that put expensive toy stores to shame. Their creativity knew no bounds, turning discarded materials into elaborate playgrounds and transforming empty lots into soccer fields where barefoot champions battled for glory that meant everything and nothing all at once. Neighbors shared meals as naturally as breathing, passing plates between households as though scarcity was just a word they'd heard about but never experienced. Elderly residents sat outside their homes, creating impromptu community centers where stories were currency and wisdom was traded freely. Young adults walked with their heads held high, dressed in carefully maintained clothes that spoke of pride rather than poverty, their smiles brighter than the city lights that illuminated wealthier districts. One particular moment crystallized everything I was witnessing. A grandmother noticed me standing there, probably looking overwhelmed by the contrast between what I was seeing and what I had expected to see. She approached me with a gentleness that immediately put me at ease and, through a younger neighbor who translated, told me something I'll never forget. "Visitors often come here looking for sadness, but we have learned that happiness is something you create, not something you find." She gestured toward the bustling life around us, the children playing, the families gathered together, the community that had formed stronger bonds than any wealthy neighborhood I'd ever seen. "We may not have everything we want," she continued, "but we have everything we need, each other." This revelation followed me as I continued my journey to the Philippines' more traditionally celebrated destinations. Palawan awaited with its promise of pristine beaches and crystal-clear waters that travel brochures describe as paradise on earth. Boracay beckoned with its reputation as a tropical playground where sunset photos become the envy of social media feeds worldwide. These places were indeed as spectacular as advertised, with beaches so perfect they seemed almost artificial, waters so blue they defied the limitations of color, and sunsets that painted the sky in hues that no camera could truly capture. Yet even in these postcard-perfect settings, it was the people who continued to steal the show and rewrite my definition of extraordinary. On a boat ride through Palawan's underground river, our guide could have simply gone through the motions of his daily routine, pointing out rock formations and spouting memorized facts about geological history. Instead, he treated our small group like honored guests in his personal sanctuary. He shared local legends with the passion of a master storyteller, pointed out hidden details that only locals would know, and took genuine pride in showing us the natural wonders of his homeland. When the tour ended and I reached for my wallet to add a generous tip to what I assumed would be an expected transaction, this remarkable man did something that left me speechless. He gently pushed my money away, looked me directly in the eyes, and said words that still echo in my memory: "Your smile and the joy in your eyes as you experienced our river, that is payment enough for me. I can see that you truly appreciate what we have here, and that means more than any money you could offer." In Boracay, While navigating the island's famous white sand beaches, I became hopelessly lost trying to find a particular restaurant that had been recommended by another traveler. Rather than wandering or pulling out my phone to rely on GPS, I decided to ask for directions from a group of local students who were enjoying their own beach day. Not only did they provide detailed directions, but they insisted on walking me halfway there to make sure I wouldn't get lost again. When I tried to buy them drinks or snacks as a thank you, they laughed and refused, saying that helping visitors enjoy their island was just what neighbors do for each other. An elderly fruit vendor near my hotel provided perhaps the most touching example of this inexplicable kindness that seemed woven into the very fabric of Filipino culture. Each morning, I would buy fresh fruit from her small stand, appreciating both the quality of her produce and the warm greeting she offered every customer. On my final day in Boracay, as I made my last purchase before heading to the airport, she slipped an extra mango into my bag. When I protested, trying to pay for the additional fruit, she waved away my money with a gentle smile and explained, "You have been kind to me every day, always saying good morning and asking about my family. You remind me of my grandson who lives far away. This mango is for your journey, so you remember that you have family here in the Philippines." Standing there on that beach, holding a mango given by a grandmother who had adopted me without ever knowing my full name, something inside me broke open. Tears I hadn't expected began flowing freely, and for the first time in my months of Asian adventures, I understood that I was experiencing something far more profound than tourism. This wasn't just another stamp in my passport or another set of photos for my travel album. This was an education in what it truly means to be human. The realization hit me like a revelation. While the rest of the world measures wealth in material terms, counting cars in driveways, gadgets in homes, and stories in skylines, the Philippines had shown me a completely different kind of richness. Here was a wealth of spirit that couldn't be quantified by any economic indicator, a treasure trove of human values that made bank accounts seem trivial by comparison. The generosity I had witnessed wasn't performed for recognition or reward. It was as natural as breathing, as instinctive as a parent protecting their child. Family wasn't just a concept here. It was a living, breathing force that extended far beyond blood relations to embrace anyone who showed genuine respect and kindness. Community wasn't something people joined. It was something they created through daily acts of caring that required no special occasions or formal ceremonies. Resilience wasn't a quality people developed through hardship. It was a fundamental strength that grew stronger when shared with others who understood its value. During my final week in the Philippines, I found myself reflecting on all the countries I had visited during my Asian odyssey. Each had offered its own unique gifts: Japan's precision and innovation, Thailand's sensory abundance, Vietnam's natural tranquility, South Korea's technological prowess. Every destination had left its mark on my travel memories and contributed something valuable to my understanding of Asia's incredible diversity. But only the Philippines had touched something deeper, something that went beyond sightseeing and cultural curiosity to reach the very core of what makes life meaningful. The Philippines hadn't just given me beautiful experiences to remember or interesting stories to tell at dinner parties. It had fundamentally altered my perspective on what constitutes a life well lived. It challenged my assumptions about the relationship between material prosperity and genuine happiness. It showed me that kindness isn't a luxury that only the wealthy can afford, but a choice that becomes more precious when it's given despite scarcity rather than because of abundance. The time and passion we invest in bringing you these transformative travel stories is immense, and your support through subscriptions helps us continue sharing these experiences with fellow adventurers around the world. As my plane lifted off from Manila for the final time, carrying me back to a world where wealth is measured in numbers and success is counted in possessions, I carried with me a truth that would forever change how I see both travel and life itself. The Philippines may not always present itself as rich in the conventional sense, with its modest infrastructure and developing economy often overshadowed by flashier destinations that dominate travel headlines and tourism budgets. But beneath that surface lies a treasure more valuable than any gold mine, more precious than any diamond cache, more enriching than any bank account could ever be. It's a treasure made of human connections that transcend cultural boundaries, of generosity that flows freely regardless of personal circumstances, of joy that isn't dependent on material conditions, and of love that embraces strangers as family without asking for anything in return. This treasure doesn't require expensive equipment to discover or premium tours to access. It doesn't depend on five-star accommodations or first-class transportation. It reveals itself to anyone willing to approach it with an open heart, genuine curiosity, and the humility to recognize that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers in the most surprising places. If Asia is truly a collection of experiences that showcase humanity's incredible diversity and potential, then the Philippines represents something essential that ties them all together, the reminder that at our core, beneath all our differences in language, culture, and circumstance, we are fundamentally the same. We all crave connection, we all appreciate kindness, we all flourish when we feel valued and accepted for who we are rather than what we own. The Philippines taught me that the most meaningful journeys aren't measured in miles traveled or sights seen, but in moments of genuine human connection that remind us why exploration matters in the first place. It's not about collecting passport stamps or Instagram photos, it's about collecting experiences that change how we see the world and our place in it. And in that regard, the Philippines isn't just another destination to visit, it's a masterclass in what it means to be truly, authentically, and beautifully human. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm bringing you fresh content every day that you won't want to miss. Turn on notifications to be the first to know when the next video drops.